Open.
Yep.
Does it say?
Yep.
Ha. Hello. I was waiting for that live red button at the very top. Hello and welcome to anyone that stopped by today with us that are joining us for a little bit of lunch live chat. We are here staying in our lane and sharing our knowledge and our guest knowledge as well. I am ThatKimberly.
And I am Deborah DeRuin.
And we are here today to do what, Deb?
So we have a great guest on today. We have Michael Bowman with Rent Cloud, and he's going to talk to us about rent deferments and whatever else we can get into today.
Not too many shiny pennies.
Stay on task.
Yes, we are. We are making sure that we stay on task. So, but before I do that, I want to make sure everybody knows that we are live on Facebook. It's working today, this week, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube. So wherever you're watching from, make sure that you like, share, and maybe even hit the subscribe on the YouTube. So that way you'll know when we are live next Tuesday. As well as if you have a question, we want to answer those. So please leave them in the comments. And if you're watching this on the replay, make sure you let us know where you watch from. Maybe include a hashtag replay, or I don't know, just tell us you watch. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Please interact with us. We would love it. We want your questions. We want your feedback.
Yes, for sure.
So feel free to jump in anytime.
Yeah. So, with that said,
without further ado, we have Michael Bowman here. How are you, Michael?
Doing good, thank you. Appreciate y'all having me on the show. Excited to be here. So thank you to Kimberly and Deb and everyone that tuned in to watch.
Thank you. All right. So real quickly, I wanted to see if you could give everyone a little history about you and where you come from in your company, just so we have a backstory.
Sure. It's a very convoluted one.
Okay, it has to be 60 seconds.
Real quickly, I made my way into property management. I was in the film and television industry for a while. Fell into the property management space on the operations side. Spent a great deal of time over there and slid over into the supplier side. I'm with DepositCloud, more commonly now referenced as EasyPay by DepositCloud. I am currently in Seattle, Washington, though it feels like LA again right now with the weather we're having.
Yes, my team's in Portland and they are dreading this heat wave. That's
what kind of heat wave? Nobody can talk about a heat wave unless you come to Texas. Okay.
Well, it has been getting over 100 degrees there, which is something that they are not used to.
So, okay, got it.
But I don't shed a lot of tears because I'm sitting in 100 degrees every day myself here in Houston, Texas. So,
Yeah. But we'll feel sorry for you guys.
I have air conditioning, so it is. But we are having some beautiful weather here in Seattle.
Cool. Awesome. So can you give us a little insight to your company, and let's dive into payment deferments. Let's do it.
Sure. So DepositCloud itself was founded in 2017 to provide a platform for managing security deposits. Oddly enough, pre-pandemic or pre-visible pandemic, we made a pivot to support rent deferments based on clients that had reached out to us asking if we had a way that we could leverage our platform. It's very proactive, positive resident experience. And we said, sure, sounds like something we would like to be part of. Had no idea when we did this. We launched last April of 2019. Now that we're zoomed forward into 2021, we did not think it was going to be this long of an ordeal. We expected to work on this and help residents and operators through the summer, maybe taper off in the fall, and now we're in August of 2021 with hopefully an end in sight, but long-term expectations and obligations.
So rent deferment, like you were saying, right, when you couldn't see the pandemic coming, but when you were asked to do this for some of your clients, what does the rent deferment entail? I'm a double agent, so I'm a renter that also works in the multifamily industry. So explain it like I'm a renter.
Yeah, so with the CDC's moratorium and then subsequently state protections or protective orders to prevent evictions, the industry was presented with a never before seen requirement, and that was to establish some type of a payment plan on unpaid balances due from inability of resident to pay because of COVID, right? A claim of COVID impact. And what that meant was that the previously unpaid balance had to be managed in a unique way, specifically to that dollar amount. And again, there's a lot of nuances to that, but property management systems weren't even capable of supporting that. Subsequently, they've come out with some releases to help with some of that, but it's a foreign concept because the rent cycle, right, is monthly, and a renter is set up or a tenant is set up on a lease agreement with an expectation that at some point they move out. These deferments can go on for years. It's incredible what our industry has been asked to bear. Owners and operators having to go without revenue or income as a result of this. And I mean, hats off to everyone who made changes to support the pandemic and this. But specifically on the renter side, they have to be able to establish a long-term payment plan, a commitment to pay that rent outside of the normal ongoing rent.
Okay. That is definitely something I'm very foreign to, the fact that people don't pay their rent. And there was a broadcast that was aired last week, I believe, or so on Fox that had Stephanie Graves as representative from HAA and Bob Pinniger, I hope I said his last name correctly, with NAA, talking about all the things that they're doing, that they recommend. And then, of course, they brought up those renters who are those bad apples, right, that are taking advantage of the system, just like they're bad apples on the owner operator side. Not many on either side. It's that 1% on both sides that make it harder for, like, me, the renter, and you used to come from the owner operator side, that are being affected by the bad apples not doing the right thing, and taking advantage. So what would you say to somebody if they were, wanting to set up rent deferment? Like, what are there any do's and don'ts of that?
Yeah, so it's a really difficult space to navigate. If you're a smaller operator and you don't have a lot of states that you operate in, then it's a little less complicated. But California alone has protective orders all the way to the county level. New Jersey, Washington, Oregon, overly protective states have requirements. We're tracking legislation in all 50 states today. We have a database of legal requirements and protective orders and expirations. And it is a significant impact on operators. The key factor is compliance. As we're seeing, you may have seen some of the headlines about these congressional subcommittees that are investigating property managers as it relates to the CDC declaration and intention. Compliance is going to be the biggest key here. Being able to have documentation to back up that you as an operator attempted to provide assistance, direction, outreach to residents on how to connect them with different types of rental assistance programs. Subset, right? You have owner initiated, and then you have resident initiated, and different requirements and restrictions along that. So I think that the biggest factor, obviously, is your customer experience, right? Aside from that, it's compliance. And then the second factor, I think, is workload, right? We were asked to help in a unique way because of that factor. Employees, site level, significant number of positions open. Hiring is difficulty, work from home restrictions. So just being cognitive of the ask on site level teams. We know operators, some are using smart sheets or Excel spreadsheets to track these deferred balances. It's a lot of work, and we're asking a lot of work for the site level teams to manage all of that in a very proactive, brand friendly way.
That's really cool. What do you think? So, I mean, there seems to be just, you're going to have bad apples in every bunch, where you're going to have bad owners. There's going to be bad renters. There's, all of the things. There's going to be bad managers out there. What do you think, like, the biggest weak spot is? You hear about all of the, millions of dollars out there in rent relief, and it is available. I mean, what would prevent an owner from utilizing that, or, a tenant, a resident? Like, what's the barrier?
Great question. I think everyone's asking what that barrier is. $47 billion in rental assistance aid that's available. To date, roughly $4 billion of it has been distributed. I would say the biggest catalyst or difficulty, the creation of these funds were then relegated to the state level, and then the state level subsequently said, we don't know what to do, let's just send this stuff to the county level, right? And so these programs, we're tracking rental assistance programs across the US, and every week there's a new program. Every month programs change or alter. The extensions on how long you have to file, the requirements to file change. I think that aside from just the difficulty in identifying or locating the available programs, is there are two aspects of each program: that the property level has requirements, and then the resident has requirements. So ensuring that both aspects are completed and done timely. It keeps going downhill, right, to the site level teams, or on larger operators, some type of centralized team that can do that, right? So part of what we were tasked to do is to help manage with that, right? There's requirements once the property owner has submitted for the rental assistance, where the resident has to essentially accept that they qualify for that. They may not. If the time and rent lapses on that requirement, then it's declined or denied, and then the operator has to start over. So I think it's educating the resident on what the benefits are, or the lack of negatives, right? Hey, this is money that can help you. And getting them to execute is really difficult. A lot of these residents, and you let's just say the bad actors, right? The ones that just don't care. They have huge balances on their ledgers. Their expectations are going to get evicted at some point. They don't really have any confidence in the community level, because they just can't believe that they're not going to get evicted, right? So they don't do anything. They're not responsible.
There's no reassurance almost. So when you're looking at a $30,000 balance, knowing that you could pay $500 today, but they might take your $500 today and then evict you tomorrow. So, or it's the fear.
Exactly. Fear.
Fear.
Yeah. Why should I pay something when I'm going to get it back? I should save it so that when I have to go find a new place, right?
Yes, I have the funds to do that.
Exactly. So a lot of these folks are ghosting the property managers, right? They're not answering phone calls. They're not looking at emails. Fear-based, right? I mean, I'm sure there's some out there that are just wholly not being supportive, right? They're just taking advantage of it. And again, that helps no one, right? Because it just makes everyone feel like they're being taken advantage of.
Right.
And so, yeah.
You also have that. Even if an owner, takes that initial step and gets that process rolling, you still have to depend on the resident to take the ball and run with it. And then that just opens, you're going to have the people that just won't, but then you also have the people that don't know how or can't, or if they're seniors and they're older, they don't have technology. So if they need to go open an email and click a link, that might be very foreign to a lot of people. So you have those challenges as well.
Just access to technology, right? demographics, geographics,
Yeah, I mean,
influence.
I would say the big message out there for renters that need assistance is like, go online and find help. But we forget that there's still a huge portion of people out there that can't go online and get help. So
there are, I would say, to those that can't go online because of all the reports, that they're putting out about communities, churches and communities holding, different sessions about, so that they could do it in person, having, so that those communities, whether it's at a library or church or community center, that they're connected and they're educating and helping those to apply and get that assistance. Because, oh my gosh, only 4 billion did I hear that correctly? 4 billion that has been, given out. And so there's a lot left. I mean, besides the fact that people aren't applying, but they do interview a lot of people saying that they are, but nothing's happening. So what would you say to that? Like, is it the trickle down is not happening?
Yeah, I think that part of that for sure is that the ambiguity around the rental assistance programs from state level, right? You can have, Washington has 3 or 4 different programs, maybe comparatively to California that might have 9. So the ambiguity in do I meet the requirements, and then is it available for me? How do I submit? The technology aspects, right? That they can't get to it. And then there were, at least in California, there were some caveats to accepting rental assistance, that there was discounts that were automatically implied. Like, hey, if you take rental assistance, then you're waiving 30% of your 20% of your balance due, right? And now those have been changed or overturned, and full funding is available. But the expectation is that there's no amount of money available that will satisfy the immense deficit that this has caused owners and operators, right?
Mm-hmm.
So getting assistance now, and it's not ending tomorrow, right?
Right.
2025, this is the new age, right? We know that we have to evolve and adapt to the circumstances, and put processes in place to help. One of the factors that we looked at was, how can we be as supportive as possible? Not only just transferring balances off the residents' ledgers into our system so that it creates that confidence or that reassurance that the property's vested in them, but being able to walk that resident through the understanding of, hey,
right,
you gotta click that link, right? You have to be able to sign the, oh no, go here, right? And direct those folks and help them. It's not even just the residents though. It's the property level. It's the time.
That's a good transition.
Yeah.
Marilyn asked, what can we as managers do to aid in the process and get residents to apply? Great question.
Very good question. So there's a number of factors, right?
What happened? Number of factors. No.
So searching for the COVID rent deferment or rent assistance programs in the area, being able to provide a consolidated document to residents, printing out application or specifics that you as a property manager can submit, putting it on their door. Little knock, hey, just want to drop something off, right? Not being intrusive. These are difficult conversations to have with residents. Nobody wants to feel that embarrassment of not being able to pay a bill, especially rent, fear, like you said. So being considerate, and so many operators are, right? I mean, property managers have the most difficult job in our space.
Yeah.
They have to day-to-day deal with prospects, current residents, past residents. They have so much work on them. Being receptive to the impacts of COVID and having that difficult conversation because you want to help, I think, is critical and key.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of the way the properties communicate with their residents nowadays via whether it's text, via, they can do a survey. Maybe it is doing a survey saying, if we did a class at night here in the business center, would that be helpful to you? You know, or just put one on and see who shows up. Like that would be, you know, a great start. You know, like you said, blanket the property and ask them if doing a class in the business center would work. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
You know, it sounds like I mean, I have always said when property managers are, you know, they don't get enough credit. You're not just managing a property. You're almost like a therapist, a social worker, best friend. You are everything to so many people. And so, you know, it makes sense that providing everything, making it easy for them to find the access, know how to do it, where to do it, and all of those things. But then that brings us back to the fact that that's also more work and responsibility put on your managers and your staff, and we don't have full staffs anymore because we have too many open jobs out there. We can't get our jobs filled. So it's just it's kind of a vicious cycle that's just going to be really hard to work our way out of.
Michael, what was the stat? 1 in 3, did you say?
Yeah, 1 in 3 positions open. It just, like you said, it means more work on the folks that are there, that are showing up every day, and hiring's hard right now. This work
that could be
from home,
that could be a whole episode in itself.
Yeah, I mean, hiring is. I mean, we've talked to operators in different states that have shifted from work from home to back in office. And they're met with the difficulties of, well, wait, I got acclimated to work from home for the last year and a half, right? I mean, I don't have daycare. I'm able to cook dinner. I don't want to go back to the office. And so then they're ending up with more open positions because those folks don't want to go back to the office. Were they productive? Maybe. But unfortunately, who are the folks that couldn't work from home full on, right? And that's your site level teams. Property managers, they have to show up boots on the ground. And so those positions are difficult to fill. Absolutely. The responsibilities are more, right? It's not like, hey, COVID happened, you have less to do. It's COVID happened, now you have 100 more things to do, right? So trying to prioritize, where does rental assistance fall into the daily workflow, right? Is reporting and prospect traffic more important? Is current resident issues maintenance? Like it's very, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it, honestly.
Our hats go off to all on-site teams for sure.
Yes.
You know,
you are on site right now. I commend you.
Yes, absolutely. It is I just, it breaks my heart when I walk into any property and you see someone being, you know, mean to the staff, because you already know that they're just doing their jobs, right? And that resident at that time of the day, especially during COVID, right? Everybody's pent up. There's something that is affecting everybody. So we need to just be a little bit more patient and communicate better, you know, ask the questions, you know, like, you know, great question, Marilyn. Thank you for asking that, because it definitely is, no question is a stupid question, right?
No. And we're all navigating this like live and, you know, in real time. No one has given us a manual on how to do business in a pandemic. So, you know, we're all just trying to figure it out as we go. And I think that's important to everyone. Just needs to calm down and cut each other some slack and be kind. We're trying to figure it out.
Yep. It's improv. It's improv at its best, right? It's how do we, and it's daily. I mean, we keep seeing, everybody thought, hey, look, the eviction moratorium's over. Let's start figuring out what these processes are. How is this going to impact our residency base? And then it was like, psych, nope, let's go another 60 days, right? That in of itself, asking operators to pivot and shift and have expectations and then pull those back, it creates even more difficulty, right? And I know that we're fixated on the property level, but I really believe that the key impact is the property level, right? Having a policy established, right? On the back end, you've got corporate that's trying to build out these policies and processes to not only help the residents stay, hopefully, in the unit and pay, but also to protect the owner and the operator and stay in compliance. Knowing the laws, as I said, we're tracking all of the legislation nationally for protective orders and rental assistance programs. And I can say that with a dedicated team, it's difficult on a daily basis to keep track of it. Operators knowing what they can or should or shouldn't do is especially smaller ones, right? The bigger operators have built out teams that are addressing that. But for the significant number of smaller operations, right? There's over 12,000 property management companies in the US. About 100 of them are considered large, right? That means significantly large. So it's those resources to make sure that they are, to Marilyn's comment, right? Helping folks get to rental assistance, but also knowing what those restrictions are. Washington, example, right? Washington State was the first to actually define reasonable payment plan. We've seen it all over the US. You know, can't evict them. You have to offer a reasonable payment plan. Well, it's really subject to interpretation. It's perspective, right? Washington defined it and said, hey, reasonable is 1/3 of the lease rent. Okay. You have to be able to, regardless of the dollar amount. So, you know, technology solves for a lot of that, right? We can functionally solve for it with, hey, their lease rent's this is what the system automatically sets up that payment plan for. Site level teams that are managing that Excel spreadsheet, trying to make sure that they're within the confines of the laws, what's protected, balances from specific months. Y'all been on a site level and looked at a Yardi ledger or one site ledger or Entrada ledger. After a year, there's a whole lot to figure out on that. Like, wait, which months is this rent from? It can get very difficult to know if those balances are within the protective window. New Jersey made it literally impossible. You cannot. So a resident that qualifies, right, within that medium income range that they said is permanently protected against eviction or removal for non-payment of rent, habitual late payment, or failure to accept a rent increase that accrued between that March and August 31st date, right?
Is there a government website that lists all the states and then shows what all those requirements are? Do they have a website that No,
NMHC and NAA have done a great job of providing resources for tracking legislation. It's really the power of Google, right? And where you're located. If you're in a state, most of the local operators, they know, or they're looking at what's going on. But just the perspective of how different from state to state it can be. If you're an operator that has 3-4 states that you operate in, versus just a single one, right? It's more difficult or complex to track that, and the ever-changing landscape of the legislation. We see these expirations, right? The CDC expiration supposedly is going to expire October 3rd. There are a number of states that have significant protections well beyond that. Washington State has the bridge legislation that was enacted that essentially is an additional moratorium. There's a winter moratorium. Effectively, you can't evict a resident in Washington until sometime early next year, March, April at this point. Most of these protective orders had, inclusive of the CDC expiration, an additional 6 months after the expiration that residents were protected. So hands are tied on a lot of operators nationally as a result of the state level, not just this giant CDC deal.
Wasn't Texas's extended too?
Predominantly everyone has extended. There's very few states that have not enacted some type of protective measure that extends beyond the CDC or requirements post CDC. Like a lot of states have developed this eviction mitigation process, right? Where once you have established that a resident failed to meet those, reasonable payment plans, rental assistance submissions. Hopefully you've got compliance documentation on phone calls, emails, submissions, everything, right? And then you file. You have to go through this eviction mitigation process, which is essentially arbitration. So you have to go before an arbitrator and say, hey, here's our case. And then, yes, okay, you can go ahead and evict, right? So what we used to see, the eviction window was anywhere from 30 to 180 days to get somebody out of a unit that wasn't paying. Now, court closures, court backups, backlog, it's going to be extensive, even just getting a bad actor out, right?
Yeah, it is. That's hard. Either way, it's hard for sure. So with that, I definitely want to, since we're trying to make this, we value your time and appreciate you so much, Michael, for joining us. Tell folks a little bit about, exactly what EasyPay is and does, and, how they can reach out to you for more information if, they have any more questions.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. We're here to help, first and foremost. What we do specifically on this deferment piece is a brand-friendly approach at managing this deferments. We get your resident onto our program. You're able to transfer that balance off of the residence ledger to a sub ledger so they're not seeing it, create some goodwill, some commitment to the property, reassurance that they're not just going to get evicted as soon as the protective order is over. And then we'll manage that entire relationship. Emails, text messages, phone calls, inbound, outbound. We're going to support those residents throughout the payment plan window. We adjust for legislation. We're fixed software solution for any types of requirements or responsibilities, and it's customizable at the property level. We just want to be beneficial and supportive of the industry that we love. And you can reach out directly to me, Michael at DepositCloud.com or info@DepositCloud.com.
Thank you. It's good to hear some new solutions coming out to, our industry to help our site teams and our management companies get past this.
Yeah, for sure. All your all's information will be linked in the comments on YouTube as well. And you can, we'll also put them in to LinkedIn as well. So we do appreciate it. If anybody has any questions later when they watch on the replay, make sure you, tag one of us or all three of us so that we make sure that we get those answered, or just shoot Michael an email if you didn't catch that again. It is, what's the email address, Michael?
Michael, Michael, at DepositCloud, DepositCloud.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was really great chatting with you today. We really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
It was great. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. And for everyone else, we made it without any freezes. There was only one freeze.
Yeah, there was one freeze that I noticed. So
okay,
yay!
That's okay. Yay!
Big improvements.
Yay! We made it through, and we're keeping it under 35 minutes. So we will be here next Tuesday with Miss Angie Pusateri with Landing. So just so y'all know, Angie, FYI, you can't back out on us because we've already put your name out there.
We just announced it, Angie. You're stuck.
We did. Thank you, Marilyn. Oh, look, it is working on the Facebook. Thank you. You're awesome.
Thanks for joining, Marilyn.
Yes. And again, if you do want to join us, if you have your own topic that you'd like to be on, Marilyn, please email one of us with that topic, because we plan to be here every Tuesday until we get kicked off, talking about educating and just sharing knowledge. So please join us.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Deb. Bye.
Bye.